Ah, the Ninja V. What a nice compact external recorder. And that screen, that screen, so good. What's that green right? Shinobi? Wait a minute, this isn't Ninja V. This is Atomos Shinobi, Ninja V's skinnier sibling. What's up guys, Chris from Wex Photo Video here. And in this video, you guessed it, we're gonna be looking at this. It is the Atomos Shinobi. It's basically a monitor only version of the Atomos Ninja V. Why make a dumbed down version of that model? Well, that's pretty easy to answer, isn't it, to be honest? You still get that 5-inch, 1000 nit HDR screen, you get all those professional monitoring tools that we love from the Atomos products, but it comes in a body that weighs 60% less than a Ninja V, it is way less power hungry, and the biggie, it costs us fine filmmaking folk less to buy it. At launch, I think it's gonna be around about the £400 mark. So before we get into it, let's first have a look at the headline specs so we can see how this compares to some of its competition. The Shinobi has a full HD 5.2-inch IPS touchscreen with 427 pixels per inch and an impressive brightness of 1000 nits, which is around 10 stops of dynamic range. It has a single HDMI input that accepts up to an uncompressed 10-bit DCI 4K signal, all the way up to 29.97 frames per second. I'm just going to say 30 frames per second from now on. And for power, it takes a single Sony NPF battery on the back, and because it's not having to expend power on recording, it has a much increased runtime in comparison to its siblings. A nice change since Atomos monitors and recorders are like black holes when it comes to power. They suck the life out of those batteries. So realistically, the Shinobi is going to go up against the small HD focus range, given its price and its size. But in terms of its screen, which, let's face it, is the most important aspect when you're buying an external monitor, the Shinobi does have the upper hand in pretty much all aspects. Where the focus wins over the Shinobi is that it can pass through power from that NPF battery to your camera, something that the Shinobi just can't do. And I know what you're thinking, well, what about those Atom X expansion cards that were announced for the Ninja V? Well, they won't work with the Shinobi as it doesn't physically have that port underneath the battery. And also, you don't get any way of mounting the Shinobi straight out the box, but you do get a dummy battery for running that unit from mains power. So let's talk monitoring. Just like the rest of Atomos' lineup, you get a whole host of pro monitoring tools at your fingertips. If we just work our way around the bottom, which is where all the tools live, we have waveform, parade, vector scopes, focus peaking, zebras, false color, various punch-in zooms, frame guides, and an anamorphic de-squeeze should you need it. And all these tools can be customized to your liking. There's also a new analysis mode that comes with the Atom OS 10, and it's basically a mode that shows the waveform, histogram, and vector scope alongside your shot at the same time, so you can really see what's going on with your image. Lovely stuff. We've also got the ability to monitor in different color spaces and gamma curves, from standard dynamic range to high dynamic range, or you can even load in up to 8 of your own preferred 3D LUTs by putting those .cube files onto an SD card and loading them in. Now, what I find super useful with the Atomos products, and the same with the Shinobi, is that it comes loaded with many popular cameras that are out there, and with them, their gammas and gamuts. So you can tell the Shinobi what it's actually receiving, and then you can make sure that the image processing is going to be on point for that camera that you're using. Some other things to note about the body: there is a remote port on the side, and that is for attaching X-Rite's iDisplay Pro, so you can calibrate the screen. Some nice peace of mind there, knowing that over time you can still make sure that your screen is going to be color accurate. There's also a 3.5mm headphone output for monitoring audio, and threads for mounting on the top and the bottom of the unit. Sadly, not on the side, unlike the small HD focus range, so those twiddly arm mounts ain't gonna work. The body of the Shinobi is pretty much identical in terms of dimensions to the Ninja V, so when it is released, at least you'll have a whole host of accessories that will work with it, should you want them. Now, there are 3 vents around the unit for heat dispersion, but honestly, the Shinobi pretty much runs silent. I don't think there's a fan in there, and to be honest, I was curious, so I opened it up, couldn't see any moving parts in there, so yes, I was right, I wasn't going insane. It is pretty much silent. So one thing that may put you off the Shinobi, or the small HD focuses, or let's face it, most of the other 5-inch external monitors that are out there, is that they all share the same sort of trait that they can only accept a 4K 30 frames per second signal. And that's a bit of a shame because obviously we're at a time now where any new camera that gets announced, we're almost like demanding and expecting it to be able to do 4K 60, so you can get those nice slow motion shots. So what does that mean for using monitors like this? Well, actually, there is a pretty easy workaround. Yes, it doesn't take more than 4K 30 frames a second, but depending on what camera you're using, you can get around it. So with my Lumix GH5S, basically I can shoot in 4K 50 frames a second, but I can set the HDMI output to downsample that to 1080p at 50 frames a second, which the Shinobi can accept. So there you go, you can still monitor those slow motion shots, and to be honest, the Shinobi is a 1080p screen anyway, so you're not really losing out on too much there. So to wrap up, if you're in the market for a new 5-inch external monitor, then in my opinion, the Atomos Ninja V and the Shinobi have one of the best all-round screens that I've had the pleasure of using. But not only that, I really do like the interface, the Atomos. It's so intuitive, so easy to use, and it's really, really powerful. It's got pretty much everything in there that I personally would need. Now, I've always been a fan of Atomos's products, but when it comes to filmmaking on mirrorless cameras, keeping it lightweight, because for me, that's the whole point. I don't like ringing it up to the point where it just becomes the same size as a Super 35mm camera, because what's the point? I'll just shoot with that instead. But when it comes to filming on these smaller cameras, before the Ninja V, we had the Shogun. That was just way too heavy for me on these cameras. The Ninja V, that was great. It's slightly a bit too heavy for me, if I'm being honest. And also the power management does run those batteries quite quick again. But with this, that sort of answers my problems, to be honest. Power efficiency is way better. It is a lot lighter, so when it's on top of my camera, it doesn't feel like it's upsetting the balance of anything. And to be completely honest, 90% of the time with my GH5S, I'm happy with the internal codecs on there, for my needs anyway. But of course, that's going to be dependent on what you actually need. But for me, this is a great little external monitor. It's so light. It's going to be nice if you just want to pop it on the side of a gimbal as well because of how light it is, especially if you're just operating it on your own. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do have any questions, do pop them in the comments and I will get back to you. If you want to check out our video on the Small HD Focus OLED, click there, give that a watch. Or if you want to see a more budget alternative, but half the price of this, then check out our video on the Swit CM-55C. I shall see you next time.